Let's talk about the top 5 most annoying things white belts do when they join a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu academy. I've been doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu extremely consistently since 2017. Since that time, I've seen a lot of beginners come in and make a few common mistakes. I've made a lot of these mistakes myself, but they tend to annoy the upper belts and the gym owners and generally people who've been doing this for longer than 6 months. In this video, I'm going to break down the top 5 most annoying things that white belts do when they're new to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. The first and most annoying thing that some white belts do when they join a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym is they're completely unaware of the hygiene rules when it comes to grappling sports and what the standards are. If you want a full breakdown, you can click up in the corner to see a link to a video on hygiene, things you should do for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But to summarize it, first and foremost, cut your damn nails. They need to be trimmed as short as you can possibly get them. If you have a long pedicure that has points on it, you're going to have to cut it off. The reason why is you don't want to scratch people and give them skin infections or generally make them bleed, because that's not cool. Beyond that, you should show up with a clean gi or uniform. If you are doing no gi, try not to wear a cotton shirt. Cotton soaks with sweat very easily. It becomes droopy. If you can, get a synthetic shirt, something like a dry fit. The difference would be, this is a cotton shirt. I probably wouldn't want to wear it to training. This is a synthetic shirt. It's made out of a different material, so when it gets wet, it doesn't deform, and it tends to wick the moisture off. So if it's going to be a no-gi day, wear an actual rash guard or a dry-fitting t-shirt if you can help it. Also, make sure you and your clothing are clean. I know this shouldn't have to be said, but it's super annoying when you get partnered with somebody and you get one whiff of them and it's like, yep, that gi hasn't been washed before, or yeah, this guy just got off working for McDonald's and you can... This is, not that you can't just get off work, but, if you've been working in an oil field been feet deep in fryer grease trying to, cook things, do your training partner some courtesy and try to rinse off if you can before class. If you don't have time to take a full shower, I'd recommend this product. Not sponsored because this channel is too small to get sponsored, but I like them anyways. It's called Defense Wipes. They're body wipes meant specifically for wrestling and jiu-jitsu. They work extremely well. I use them before or after practice. But if you get partnered up with a white belt who has bad hygiene, that's super annoying. Let's go on to the number 2 most annoying thing some new white belts do when they get to the gym, and that's question the validity of the techniques while or after the instructor is demonstrating them. Now, there's a difference between questioning a technique to say, hey, so when you do this technique, do you have your grip like this or this? Why do you do that? Can you explain the pressure? Oftentimes, these questions will be things that other people are thinking and are quite helpful to get you to understand. But what the professor and all the upper belts don't want to hear is, what if he just what if he just eye gouged? What if he just punched you in the face? What if he just stood up? What if he went this way instead of this way? Well, there's a bunch of different techniques, and if you went this way instead of this way, well, you'd probably do a different technique. You don't know what you don't know, and it's possible that you are some magical savant who has come across this thing where you are so extremely gifted that you're better at understanding it than someone who's been doing this for a decade. And if they're a proper black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, chances are they have around a decade of mat experience, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, but chances are 10 years is about the ballpark you'll get a black belt. So the chances that you understand some massive hole or flaw in the technique is pretty slim to none. Chances are you're experiencing the Dunning-Kruger effect. So my best advice, even if you think a technique won't work, even if you think a technique isn't good, still practice it the way your instructor is showing. After all, you are going to them to teach you how to do this new thing because they're more knowledgeable in it than you. And then just try it. Over the years, you might learn some things that you don't necessarily use. First, that doesn't mean it doesn't work. It's possible you don't understand all of the details right away. It's possible that it works better for a different body type. Maybe for people who have longer arms, it's easier to do things like Darce chokes. But that being said, it doesn't mean it doesn't work. Even if you're learning some kind of garbage technique, which you're probably not if you're going to a good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym, just listen, try to understand what the professor or instructor is showing you, and do it to the best of your ability. I promise that's how you're going to get better. And at the end of the day, the things that work when you're rolling live are going to be what stick and cement into your game. So if you don't practice new things while you're drilling, you won't practice new things while you're sparring. That overall is how you grow your jiu-jitsu game. So if you're questioning whether or not something would work in the streets, or if they eye gouged you, or if they did this or that, just keep it to yourself. If you really want to know, you could ask after class, or do a private lesson, or just figure it out on your own. Grab someone, say, hey man, I was wondering what would happen while we were doing this technique if you try to do X, Y, or Z. And so in open mat, run a few experiments and see what would happen. But during class, when the professor is showing the moves, is not the time to be asking whether or not they would work. Super annoying when white belts do that. Moving on to the third most annoying thing that new white belts do when joining a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu academy is sometimes they resist way too hard while drilling. Now, I want to be clear and precise with what I say here. I'm not saying you can't pressure test your techniques. In fact, that's what the sparring and open mat portions of class are usually for. It's for practicing your techniques against someone who's fully trying to stop you. What I am saying is, if you are trying to drill a guard pass and you're trying as absolute hard as you can to squeeze everything in tight and then shut down the guard pass because the person you're drilling with happens to have a different colored belt on than you, you're doing it wrong. If you are drilling a particular guard pass and they have to move your legs from here to here, but you're resisting as hard as you can to go from here to here, well, in a live match, what a skilled opponent will do won't just continually force the same move, which is what you have to do while you're drilling. Instead, if they can't move them here, well, they'll pin them down and they'll walk around and do it the other way. So it's not a realistic setting to expect that if someone has a dark colored belt on, then they can magically do any technique if you are fully resisting them and stopping just that technique. If you're practicing the rear naked choke and it turns into a full-on tuck the chin, defend with your whole life battle, that's not going to be a game you're going to want to play. First of all, because that's not helping you build better mechanics. The purpose of drilling, at least what I've found, is to build a framework in your muscle memory through repeated repetitions of that motion. And the best way to build that base framework is to start off with zero resistance whatsoever. I call this level 0. You literally just want to figure out where to put your hands to make the proper mechanics for whatever move you're trying to do, and then just build a framework in your mind by doing that again and again and again, and then that'll build into muscle memory. So later, eventually, you'll be able to do this without really thinking about it by just calling upon, okay, triangle choke. I go here, 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 and here. And you just do it automatically because you built in that muscle memory. Now, if someone's trying as hard as they can to defend the move that you're trying to practice or the series that you're trying to practice, well, they might have to switch to a different one because that's what your defense is opening up. That's what jiu-jitsu is playing off your opponent's defense to make it work against them. But if you're drilling, you have to do the same move, so your partner might be forced to really just muscle through a rep, and that's not good practice for either one of you guys. What's a better way to do it is resist just enough so that way your partner can still get clean, fluid reps, and practice rather slowly. Now, this is something every white belt has to learn. I'm a purple belt, and I still have to learn it really regularly, is when you slow down the reps, oftentimes it gets better. And good jiu-jitsu can be done really slowly. So try not to resist super hard during your reps and instead just move through the motions and get good practice. Don't be the white belt who's resisting hard while you're drilling. Moving on to the fourth most annoying thing I've seen some new white belts do in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. This one is more universal. I've seen it across all the belts. But it's a simple lack of humility. The fact of the matter is, if you're training a combat sport like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you're going to get tapped out. You're going to get tapped out by white belts, by blue belts, by purple belts, by brown belts, by black belts. You're going to get tapped out by every color of the belt. Even if you're a black belt, you could still get tapped out by a white belt. Jiu-Jitsu works all the same, and if a choke is sunk in, you should tap. Now, if you're a brand new white belt and you're still learning that it's okay to lose in training, again, you shouldn't be trying to win. You should be trying to get better. But people see it as a win or a loss situation. I get why. It's like a life or death struggle. That's part of the reason why it's fun, because to tap people out is fun because you beat them, but you're all teammates, hopefully, if you're in the same room training grappling together, and you're all trying to get better. So at the end of the day, it's not about winning or losing, it's about getting better. And now some people are going to get tapped, and if that just so happens to be you, and you just so happen to lack humility, you might be tempted to say something like, wow, bro, I didn't realize you were that strong. Oh man, you really got me. Too bad I'm out of shape. It's too bad I'm such an old guy, you know. You young guys, man, you can really put a work on it. And, you know, for the most part, that's fine. And it's really not a big deal. But everybody can see the fact that you're just making excuses. I know for a fact I've seen 60-year-old brown belts train really, really hard and do really, really complicated techniques. And then I have these 30, 40-year-old guys who are lacking humility, refusing to accept that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is a skill that you have to get good at, that takes a bunch of time. And after someone taps them out, they try to make excuses. Don't be that guy or girl. It's really annoying. The other thing I see is they'll try to go aggro. They'll try to get really aggressive and go harder to get back at somebody if they tap them out. This is something I've seen everywhere. And honestly, it can be kind of fun sometimes as long as nobody gets injured. But this brings us into the fifth most annoying thing that new white belts do when they join Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and that's make common sparring mistakes. The biggest mistake new white belts make when it comes to sparring is having very fast, uncontrolled, jerky motions. They try to just rip and roar out of things if they get stuck and they feel like they can just get somebody off of them. And what might end up happening is an elbow, a knee, a foot might catch somebody in the face or uncomfortable areas and leave marks. Happens to the best of us. And, you know, as an upper belt or somebody who's doing jiu-jitsu, you should watch out. You should know that if you're in a position where you could get accidentally kneed or kicked or elbowed or punched, you should try to control their limbs. But at the end of the day, if someone's ripping and roaring and doing crazy, unpredictable, wild, spazzy things, that's how injuries happen. You gotta be careful of that. Don't be that guy or girl. The other thing that white belts have trouble with in relation to sparring is holding their breath, panicking, and learning to be calm. Now, this is the one that takes the most amount of time to work through, and that's because a grappling situation feels like a live fight to the death. And people have a tendency to hold their breath, they have a tendency to panic, they have a tendency to breathe really heavily, and try super duper hard to win. This goes back to the concept of winning rather than training every single roll. So if you don't have the experience, you might not be able to tone down the intensity of training. It's much easier if at any point I could submit the person who I'm rolling with for me to go at a very leisurely pace than a white belt who feels completely helpless. That being said, over time, you should try to cultivate the skill of being very calm during rolls. That's almost always going to help you. And then also working through your different gear systems. You don't want to be going 100% every single roll because that's your only option. You want to be able to go slow and take it easy. And the reason for that is sometimes when you're rolling, it actually makes more sense to have some calm, controlled motions to save your energy rather than to completely smash them 100% of the time. So learn how to spar by sparring. Learn how to do jiu-jitsu by doing jiu-jitsu. Don't beat yourself up if you've made some of these mistakes because everybody's been the cringy white belt before. I know I have. Everybody's been the white belt who resisted during sparring, who was doing it too fast, who wasn't drilling properly, who was asking dumb questions. It happens to the best of us. But I hope these 5 tips helped you become a less annoying white belt and work on your humility a little bit. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is an awesome thing, and it doesn't take that long before you have your blue belt and you're in a senior position. Then you can laugh at all the white belts who do these things. Thanks for watching. If you made it to the end of the video and you want to support the channel, YouTube stuff down below is the #1 thing you can do to help me, liking, commenting, subscribing. Other than that, the watch time, if you made it here, helps the most. So I appreciate y'all. Get out there, train, have a good time, take care of your training partners. Don't be cringe. Peace.